Om Shanti. So welcome back. So I would like to share some thoughts about purity, the depth of purity. And maybe, I'm not sure, there might be a little bit of time for chit chat and questions. So if you have a question, that should be fine. I'm just seeing that some are still sorting out their translation. So maybe just for a minute or two, we can wait until that is ready. But one thing I've found really interesting is that if you go to any religious gathering, almost any, they will talk about peace, love, happiness, power. But only here do we talk about purity. Really, I don't think anywhere else they really talk. And yet, in one way, Baba says it's purity, which is the foundation of all those things. So that's why this gathering, and sometimes even Baba says that, God's come. There's only 900,000 BKs. Why? Because of purity. Otherwise, there'd be millions and millions and millions, but because of purity. Anyway, maybe I can start. So once Baba said, how close do I feel to Baba? Is there anything more important in this life than really feeling close? And then Baba said it's on the basis of purity. I feel, firstly, extremely close to Baba. Secondly, in front of Baba. And thirdly, at a distance from Baba. Baba is eternally pure, never, ever influenced. So in one way, if I want to come closer to Baba, I have to increase my purity. I have to upgrade the quality of my purity. What I find is that we are old souls, and as soon as we come in Baba's door and we hear about purity, we know it's right. We know it's the truth because it's recorded in our memory track. Not just celibacy, but all aspects of purity. Why do we love Baba? Because of Baba's purity that is so attractive. Purity is so attractive because embedded in that purity is love, belonging, honesty, truth, innocence. So many things are embedded in that purity that attracts us. But my own experience in this life is that if you feel pure inside, you feel clean, you really feel comfortable. That sweet feeling, you feel comfortable with who you are, which is a really, really important thing in Brahman life. But on the other hand, if there's impurity, you don't feel comfortable internally. There's a discomfort. And in a way, it's not just impurity. In a way, it's almost like I'm going against my truth, because truth is my original purity, and purity is my original truth. And if I'm not really following it, there's sort of an uneasiness, a discomfort inside. And once one of the sisters in Australia, she studied all the Mulis, and she said to me that of all the subjects Baba speaks about, which subject do you think he speaks most about? It's not purity. It was a trick question. Love. Second is purity. And I once got out all those mulis because, we've got this incredible resource of all of Baba's truth. when I need to explore a subject to go into it. And Baba makes these amazing statements. Purity is the real method for self-respect. And honestly, my own feeling is that whenever there's a little bit of impurity inside, it's hard to feel really good about myself. But when there's real purity, the self-value, the self-respect really blooms. Purity is the real method for self-respect. Purity is the real method for happiness. Purity is the mother of peace and happiness. Purity is the real method for spiritual power. And once Baba said, how did the prophet souls establish their religion? If you look at the history of all the religions, they had so much opposition. There was so much opposition. What enabled them to really face that? Baba said it was their purity. And just as the definition of the law of karma is so deep, so is the definition of purity. And Baba was saying, if I go through the day, you know, where all of us, as you go through the day, sometimes just a little wave of sadness or sorrow, whether a gross or subtle, just comes through your mind. Baba was saying that's a gross or subtle form of impurity. And then Baba said, when there's a pure soul, when the soul is really pure, and you can insult their face and it will just not affect them at all. Who's that pure here? Who's ready to be insulted to your face? This is where Baba's taking us, because it's my impurity, it's my ego that keeps taking insult and disrespect and all of those things. And so what is purity? To me, purity is a state of being when all aspects of my life are based on truth. Truth is the seed. And when truth flows into my thinking, my feeling, my face, my behavior, it becomes purity. Truth is the foundation, and purity, when truth grows into my life, its purity is the perfume of truth as it flows through my life. And I feel that many of us often think at some point in my Brahman life, I really want to upgrade the quality of my purity. Because that is such a spiritual power. Look at someone like Daddy Gulzar. She was so pure. Like just seeing her, your love comes from your heart. Purity is so incredibly attractive. And so to me, there's probably three truths that are like seeds that if I embed in my mind, the deeper I sort of hold them in my mind, as I do that, they flow into my feelings, my thoughts, my behavior, my face, my attitude. The seed of all purity is all relationships with one Shiv Baba. In fact, this is the most powerful point of spiritual knowledge. In my observation, the Brahmins who really move forward in Brahman life, the ones who really grow, flourish, and really reach that elevated stage, they all have this one sanskara, all relationships with one Shiv Baba. Once we asked Daddy Prakash Muni, why did Baba make you the instrument of the yajna, the main instrument? Imagine when Sakha Baba was there, this incredible spiritual powerhouse, and then suddenly he leaves, and then Daddyji, who's in her mid-40s, and she said, because right from the beginning, I had all relationships with one Shiv Baba. And I feel that wins Baba's trust. So that, to me, that the first seed of truth that starts to draw out the depth of purity is all relationships with one. Second, I would say, not just to follow Srimat, to live it. And to me, Srimat is not sort of rules and regulations. To me, that's a very superficial view of Srimat. To me, Srimat is like a deep code of truth of how to live in this world and go beyond the game of giving sorrow and taking sorrow. And when I really live it, because it's not that I follow it, it becomes who I am, it's natural for me, then once again, it's like I don't do any sort of body conscious actions. And so that's also starts to draw out the purity. But the third seed of truth for me is benevolence. And I feel that the sanskara of God, if I can say, is to give, to be benevolent. You know, Baba is always giving, 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 giving. And in a way, I think it's our original and natural sanskara. And the more I give respect, give love, give good wishes, the less I take disrespect, take hurt, take insult. And this is why I think, in a sense, the essence of service is benevolence. And when I sort of start to think, well, what is really Brahman life? It's to be in love with one, sustained by one. And then my whole purpose of living is to give, to give, to give. It sort of draws out the original sanskaras of the soul. And so it's like those truths I embed deeply in the sacred space of my mind. As they germinate and grow into my life, they become purity. But the seed is all relationships with one Shiv Baba. This to me is the most powerful point of spiritual knowledge. But impurity is all about influence. If things, I'm very influenced just by just a word from somebody, a comment from somebody, a little reaction. That sort of hurts me, affects me, just changes my thinking, that is my impurity. Purity is impenetrable. Nothing can influence purity. In the Golden Age, absolutely nothing can influence us. We are a full system. But at the end of the Iron Age, it's like in the Golden Age, we were completely full. Nothing could influence. When I come to the Copper Age, it's like whatever I desire, the law says, whatever I desire will influence me. If I desire you to love me, and you love me, I'm okay. But if you don't, I'm affected. And by the end of the Iron Age, everything impacts the soul. You know, we've just lost all our purity, and every little tiny thing, not even words, sometimes facial expressions, the presence of someone, a memory is constantly changing my mood. This is my impurity. And in a way, I feel Baba has come to heal us, you know, from all these influences. And as we heal and we go back into our purity, that's when we really feel spiritually strong and stable. And once I was reflecting, you know, when Baba left his body and he summarized 32 years of efforts in 3 words, just those 3 words, the famous 3 words. In a way, incorporeal heals my relationship with matter. When I become incorporeal, it balances out and restores my relationship with the material world. When I become egoless, it heals my relationship with all human souls. And when I become viceless, it heals my relationship with God. And in a way, the levels of purity that we have to develop and different types of purity for the soul to really step back into that incredible sense of spiritual strength and power. And the first influence Baba heals us is the influence of matter. And in a way, sometimes I feel like the sanskara of lust is the human soul. You think this human soul, so subtle. You know, someone said to me, a little while ago that this body is made up of 30 trillion cells. I don't know how they counted them. I've got no idea. But you think trillions, billions of these little tiny building blocks. The soul is more subtle than one cell. How subtle am I? Who am I really? If I really go deep. And this tiny, subtle entity is attracted to name, form, color, shape, which is really the form. Lust is like the soul surrendering its sovereignty to the material world. And in a sense, as we practice soul consciousness, we start to take back that power once again. The second is the influence of others. Baba heals us from the influence of others. Purity heals us. And I remember one Morley where Baba said, the reason children are defeated in purity is that we become impressed by someone's personality, someone's nature, someone's virtues, someone's specialties. And Baba went on to say that all of these have been given by Baba. So rather than seeing it's Baba who's given to the soul, I get impressed with the soul. And Baba said to be impressed is to be deceived, and to be deceived is to take sorrow. And Baba went on to say that this subtle form of impurity, and even once Baba said it's the subtle form of lust, is when we become impressed. We put someone a bit on a pedestal. And Baba then went in, we start to say, I really like this person. I really love the way they teach the knowledge. They support me. They cooperate with me. They give me love. They give me love. And you think, what's wrong with that? Is that Baba always says to seek good. But then Baba went on to subtly say, what happens is, subtly a human being comes into my vision and Baba goes out of my vision. And really, I feel personally that many of us get stuck. We follow a pure life, but we get very, on one hand, impressed with some, even in the Brahmin family, and on the other hand, a bit disgusted by others. It's the same samskara. I put some on a pedestal, these are good, and some I say these are bad. This is actually a form of impurity, this like, dislike, accept, reject sort of nature. And in a way, when I started, and Miraben will remember this, that when we started, whenever anyone published a book, you never put their name on it. You never put the name on the book, the author. When we had published a lecture, when we said we're having a lecture, you would never, it was just the Brahma Kumaris giving the lecture, because it was such a deep thing. This is God's work, and I shouldn't be anyone's name should not be there, in a way, not get impressed. But because of the nature of the culture of the world and people want to see who's speaking, we go along with that. But sometimes even in the Brahmin family, we say, oh, have you heard the classes of this one on YouTube and this one? And we all have our favorite teachers. It's okay. But if we start to really, oh, this one is the great teacher, I follow this one subtly, ultimately, who's teaching everyone? It's Baba. And really, we can get stuck once again in a subtle form, the name and form of human beings. This is very deep stuff, really. And so purity in relationships is giving respect to everybody, having good wishes, but not being impressed by anyone. And understanding that each soul has a specialty, but all of those ultimately have come from Baba. Then I keep a really balanced perspective, because as much as I put some on the pedestal, they're so good, they're the best, that's how much I often have the other side of the coin too. And in a way, we want to be at that level of purity where I just see each one as a soul and have good wishes for the soul. And some years ago, I was really thinking about all of this. And how can I tell my purity? How can I really tell that I've changed and I've developed purity? I feel the best way is my reactions to people. If I still reject somebody, if I hold a grudge against somebody, if I can't forgive somebody, I would say it's showing me I still have Tamo Pradhan Sanskaras. What Baba said this morning, didn't he? Went into great. Yes, child, they were bad. They did do something bad. They were wrong. He said it 5 or 6 times, but you can't absorb it. Because if others are just a messenger, an instrument to show me who I am, and it's my reactions, they're just an instrument which draw out what's in me. And if I still reject somebody or I give someone the silent treatment, the silent treatment? It's like you ignore them, you don't speak to them, they don't exist, or I get very dominating, forceful, controlling. I would show it's showing me I still have Tamo Pradhan Sanskaras. It's not the other. The other's an instrument to show me who I am. What are Tamo Sanskaras? I would say getting very easily upset. A little tiny thing happens, I make it into a big deal. Or I'm chronically critical in my mind. I mightn't say much, but in my mind, I'm always saying, I don't like this, why are they like this is wrong, this is bad, correcting everybody. If my mind is like this, or I have a special friend, and when we get together, we just gossip and put down other people. If this is happening, it's once again, it's not about the others, it's me. It means that I still hold those sanskaras within myself. So it's showing me I'm still carrying a level of sanskara that's type Tamo. What are Rajo sanskaras? Preferences. I like you, but I don't like you. I like this behavior, I don't like this behavior. And what are Sato sanskaras? It's really when it almost, with anyone, it's natural for me to react, to respond with love, to respond with respect, to have goodwill, to suspend judgment and offer mercy. That is such a beautiful thing. Sometimes I think everyone in this world is struggling. It's a difficult world. We can become so judgmental of each other. That's really quite body conscious. But to offer mercy, that sometimes, people go through difficult times, their behavior is a little bit awkward. So how do I react to others? If I observe it, they're just the instrument to trigger what is in me. They are the instrument to show me who I am. And if I'm rejecting or criticizing, it's all about my sanskaras are still there. And this can show me, my level of purity and what Baba wants. And why does he say every day, children, good wishes, good wishes, good wishes? Because the more pure the soul becomes, naturally, the sense of goodwill. And this is the foundation of service. When I have genuine goodwill for others, love for others, support for others, respect for others, that's showing that that's my reactions to people. My sanskaras have really become clean. I'm really becoming pure. So first, Baba heals the relations, the influence of matter. Secondly, heals me from the influence of others. And really, I feel the virtue we all need at the moment is detachment. Detachment to me is a real sign of purity, but Baba's detachment, which is to be very loving, caring, close, considerate, but uninfluenced by. You know, the law says the more influence, the more I'm affected, the more I'm disturbed, that's my impurity. It's not about the scene. The scene is just showing me, or the person is just showing me what is still left in me. And so Baba heals us from the influence of matter, heals us from the influence of others, and heals us from the influence of the old self, the body conscious self. Because I've also reflected on this quite a bit because, you know, we are Baba's children, but all of us carry a story of this life. And we are old souls, very old souls. So for many of us, this life has not been that easy. It's been a bit turbulent because all my karmic accounts have come out in health, wealth, family relationships, all sorts of things have happened to us. And often I still identify with that story of my past. I'm a Brahmin, I follow Srimad, I turn up for the Murli, but I still identify with my story. What has happened to me, how people have treated me, what people have done to me, what people have said to me. You know, it's still a story that I identify with and still take some sorrow from. You know, in psychology, some of them say that 70% of our thinking is about the past. It's amazing. You know, it's so much reworking. Why did this happen? Why did they say this? This should have happened. That should have happened. That's, you know, so I'm still identifying with the old story. Baba has given us a new story, that actually I'm a Brahman soul and I'm a deity soul. So this is why Baba says, remember Baba and the inheritance, because if I remember the inheritance, that actually my original nature is pure, my original story is pure, but the conditioned story of this life is impure. And if I'm always identifying this, still caught in the past family and what has happened, it's like holding me back. It's like I want to run forward, but I just can't because I'm identifying with that story too. So it's like Baba's healing me from the influence. And that's why when Baba says, this is my 84th birth, it's a new life. That life is now finished. It's finished. In a true Brahman, I will completely step away from that life. I've got a new life with God. And so I let that go. So Baba's healing me from the influence of the matter, others, my past story. Complete purity is like an unadulterated link with Baba, that nothing can break my link with Baba. No influence of my past or others can actually break my link with Baba. And this is our journey. We're on this journey to this, like this highest form of purity. And so to reflect, you know, how do I respond to others, you know? If I'm really honest and ask my heart, it's nothing, all of us have some forms of those things, but the real question is, do I realize it's me? Or am I still thinking it's them? If I think it's them, the problem, I still haven't understood Gyan. It's 100% about me. People will be rude, people will be difficult, people will do this, people will do that, people will be dishonest. It's absolutely a fact. Baba said they're bad. But if I react, that's my reaction. It comes from my sanskaras. The soul with Gyan will take full responsibility for that reaction. The soul without Gyan will still project back on that person. Your behavior made me feel this. That's not true. That's a falsehood. And this is where, if I really want to become pure, I really have to take full responsibility for my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. Because if I keep blaming, you know, in spirituality, blame is the ultimate ignorance. because what am I saying when it's like when you change, I will change. It's like I give my power to you. And I can't do anything. I feel the victim. I was reading recently that someone was saying the whole culture of the world today, everyone feels a victim. Everyone's a victim of society, the government, the bosses, their families. But in the law of karma, when we go deep, 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 no one is a victim. No one. It's a falsehood, really. And that's where when I really think clearly that I am responsible, when I take full responsibility, each feeling I have, if I feel hurt, if I feel upset, if I feel disturbed, if I feel disrespected, it's me. Even if someone does disrespect me and I feel it still. And this is why we love Baba, because this is such a high teaching, isn't it? But we know it's the truth and why we want to get there. Because I do feel many of us get stuck in this place of mental karmic stuff with other people. We get stuck. They're like this, they've done this, they've said this. And it stops me really having the depth of yoga I want to with Baba. So I think many of us feel, how can I really create a much deeper state of purity in myself? And I feel the first step is I need to fall in love with purity. We love Baba, but when I really understand how purity will heal me so deeply, purity will really restore a sense of an unshakable sense of self-value and self-respect. To really love purity, because sometimes my head tells me it's right. My head knows this is the truth, this is right, but my sanskaras have a different story. And there's a little bit of conflict. My head says, yes, purity is right. My sanskaras want to pull me in a different direction. It's almost inevitable for most Brahmins. There'll be a bit of a wrestling match between the truth in my head and the sanskaras that pull me or attract me. And this can happen to most of us, but I think really it's a part of really understanding the attainment of purity. Baba often talks about attainment, that really purity is that the mother of peace, the mother of happiness. Really, when I understand and I really love purity, it begins as a power. But secondly, I feel it's almost like we have to consciously set up an internal environment to draw out that purity in the soul. And therefore, just those truths, I have to embed these truths in my being, all relationships with one. Baba's directions, that benevolent nature. If I really hold this and this is who I am, it starts to really draw out the purity, because we have a blueprint of absolute purity sitting in me now. It's in my memory track. Each soul sitting in this room has known 2,500 years or more of absolute purity. And if you look, how Baba said there's 5 types of sanskaras. The eternal sanskaras, totally pure. The original sanskaras of the Golden Age, totally pure. The devotional sanskaras, impure. The Brahmin sanskaras, the sanskaras of an effort maker on the journey to purity. The angel sanskaras, pure. 3 out of the 5 of those sets of sanskaras are pure. So purity is within me. And it's almost like, the more I set up the environment, it's not that I have to become pure. It's like I withdraw the original nature out of my subconscious. It's like I start to identify with those sanskaras rather than, my set of impure sanskaras. The third thing on this journey, so first I really question my relationship. Do I really love purity, or I just believe it? Because if you just believe it, you will be pulled. And secondly, consciously setting up this internal environment to really, really embed truth in my being that starts to draw out that which is in my memory track, my sanskaras. The third thing that happens is storms will come. When you try to embed purity in yourself, the old self will challenge it. And, what does Baba say? Baba says, children, storms will come. Have you ever heard Baba say, children, storms might come? Even Brahma Baba tells us. That's why we shouldn't be worried in a way that sometimes it's not just storms, it's typhoons and earthquakes and tsunamis. Things we never imagined come out of the soul in that way. It's not wrong and it's not going backwards. It's a part of the process of change. As I'm starting to, I've been grossly impure when I walk into Baba's home. And as I start to recreate purity, the old self will battle, will fight, the old habits will react. And this is like the war with Maya, the inner war. Like they say, the jihad, that word we hear. Now it's interpreted as fighting the non-believer. It's actually, the original meaning was fighting the impurity within. This is the greatest journey of life, to have the courage to fight this battle. And really, what works in this battle, we have to use Gyan. Because I find often with Brahmins, we teach the course, we teach it beautifully. But when a problem comes, we drop Gyan and we just get emotional. All my emotions come back and all my old thinking. So I know the knowledge, but I don't really apply it in that way. And yet the only way to really face the storms that come is to really apply knowledge and understand that this process of upheaval is also just a part of the journey. The fourth thing I would say is honesty. If I'm on this journey to purity and I'm not really feeling, I'm practicing, but I'm not really feeling the purity is really coming. I'm following Srimad, I'm remembering Baba, but still I'm not really feeling that real purity is emerging within me. There's a leak somewhere. And I feel one of the most necessary things of a knowledgeful soul is to see myself objectively. Can I be almost like a complete detached observer of myself and have that much honesty without self-deception? One of the feelings I have of bhakti, it's put so much self-deception in my head. Who I am and who I think I am is often very different. I think I'm something, but who I really am is something different. And so when people say something to me, I get so offended because I think they don't know me. But actually, sometimes I have this sort of fantasy vision of really who I am. I can't see myself. I used to have this thing for myself that for the scenes of drama, I'm a detached observer. For others, I'm a benevolent observer. That is so, I make this decision for everyone, a benevolent observer, but for the self, an honest observer. Can I stand back and observe myself, know my strengths and know my weaknesses, really have that, and then see where the leak of purity is? And often it is, it's a dependent relationship with somebody. It's a dependent relationship. Because I think, purity, when we follow celibacy, we follow physical celibacy. But do I follow emotional celibacy? I might follow it physically, but in my mind, I'm very dependent on somebody. That's not purity. That's not purity. And often I think we're very innocent about my dependence on logics and things like that. And that is the thing that often holds me back from a deep relationship with Baba. Because I do follow a physical celibacy, but mentally I'm quite dependent. I'm taking support of somebody. That's not purity. I really need ultimately to stand with Baba. Or not only emotional celibacy, mental celibacy too. In the sense, how do I see others? Do I see the soul, or am I still influenced by name and form? So I might follow it physically, but the other dimensions are really taking me deeper. Am I still influenced by name and form? And when I get impressed with people, I'm either having that like or dislike of the name and form. This, because Baba teaches us, he takes us to such a high stage, really. And that's why we love Baba, because he really takes us to this high level. And so, do I have a leak? Am I really mentally dependent on a few people? That won't allow me to become pure. Or do I just am a little bit attracted to someone in the back of my mind? It's not gross, but I think about them, I'm attracted to them, I'm sort of have a little bit of fantasy in my own thinking. That's not purity. Because we want to know, go to the top. And so, this honesty with myself, to be really honest with myself. Because when I really follow those, I really begin to love purity. I create an environment for that purity to really flourish within me. I'm prepared with Gyan when the storms and the challenges come. And I'm honest to see where the leaks are happening. Really, the soul becomes really strong. And that's when I can really be a yogi with Baba, really a yogi with Baba, because ultimately, why do we come here? The ultimate purity is an unbroken link with Shiv Baba. That's what all of us come here for. Ultimately, that's what we want most, don't we? And I often feel, purity enables me to have that link. So what is the quality of my meditation? What is the quality of my yoga? I think many of us, when we sit, we just think about Baba. We think about Baba, think about Baba's knowledge, think about Baba's virtues. That's nice. I feel more relaxed. They're good thoughts, they're pure thoughts, but that's not really yoga. Yoga is when I literally become completely detached from my body and absorb my mind, my intellect, my whole being in Shiv Baba. And that's when the soul really receives that spiritual power. And I often feel, to build that quality of yoga so that I can be free to link with Baba. And once Baba, in fact, recently, Baba talked about the 2 principles of freedom. And in a way, these principles free me from all the pulls. When you go to meditate, the mind's pulled here, the mind's pulled there, sometimes to a person, sometimes to a responsibility, sometimes to a memory, sometimes to a worry. And as I was saying earlier, when it chronically happens, I lose a bit of confidence that I'm a good meditator. I start to doubt that I can really meditate well because I'm pulled all over the place. Why? Because often we just want to sit down and go to Baba. Does it work? Not much, because we haven't done all the groundwork. You have to build each part of Brahman life to free yourself to have that connection. The 2 principles that all of yoga and purity are built on is mine is one Shiv Baba and none other. And secondly, nothing is mine, everything is Baba's. So I'm just divesting myself of the I and my, and really they're like the foundation that enables me to really build my yoga. But the second step is my lifestyle. Now, often when we can't meditate, we think, oh, it's when I sit. So I sit down, I wrestle with my thoughts, wrestle with my thinking. But actually, it's the 18 hours of the day. And I've realized this a lot, that if my karmas are inaccurate during the day, a little bit of irritation, annoyance, just slightly playing a little bit of attraction to someone, pulled by somebody, a little bit of dislike, gossip, those karmas, when I go to meditate, pull me away. And this is why Srimat is essential in building this complete purity, this yoga link. Because when I follow Baba's directions, it frees me from bad karma. And when it frees me from bad karma, that means those karmas aren't pulling my mind when I'm trying to remember Baba. So it's like I'm starting to prepare my stage for that complete purity. So first, the two principles of freedom, the foundation, the awareness. Second, my lifestyle. Third, soul conscious practice. Have we done the work? Baba is eternally soul conscious. He's on that wavelength. If I really want to be close, communicate, feel loved, belonging, the more I'm on Baba's wavelength, it's natural. But if I'm semi-body conscious, I still feel at a bit of a distance, like those three things. Am I extremely close to Baba? Am I just in front of Baba or at a distance from Baba? Because that's soul conscious practice. And, really when I've been to Karachi twice in the last few years, and when I go to Kunj Bhavan, where Mama lived with all the Kumaris, and Baba gave 14 years of sort of this incredible course in soul consciousness. And that's why the daddies had such a unique vibration, because they are really soul conscious. And I think we can't underestimate that this is our daily, hourly practice, to be constantly on the journey of being a soul acting through the body, identifying that I'm incorporeal, immortal, non-physical, because I think we've hardly scratched the surface. And if Baba's eternally a soul and I'm sort of half body conscious, can I really have the closeness of link? So that soul conscious practice, the experiments in soul consciousness. And then I'm building my stage. Then there's love. And love is like the fuel that propels me out of the body and takes me in front of Baba. And that's then really, it's like Baba, I'm completely present in front of Baba, Shiv Baba. And it's almost like all the pulls and all the attractions, because I've laid the foundation of freedom. I'm following Baba's directions. I'm practicing soul consciousness. The soul's beyond the sense organs. The senses aren't pulling me back. I'm absolutely present in front of, connected to Shiv Baba. And that's when Baba's feelings, Baba's vibrations enter me. And I really feel so connected, and I can almost feel Baba's power healing me and changing me. And I'm not being pulled, I'm absolutely present. This is the complete purity that we really want. The more pure, the more I'm present. And the more I'm present, it's like really I'm infused with Baba's power, Baba's vibrations, Baba's energy. But it's not just enough just to sort of sit down and try to go there, because I have to do all the work in my Brahman life, and that frees the soul so that there's that unadulterated link with Shiv Baba. It's a high destination that Baba is taking us on, but really when we follow the methods, it's absolutely possible for all of us. And, you know, purity is I think, the unique power of the confluence age. And I think it's unique to this divine family, absolutely unique. And why I really love the atmosphere in this divine family, because of the purity that we create. It's really special. So I'm going to suggest we just have a few minutes meditation, and then we can finish. And then I think at 11:15 or 11:30. Okay, 11:15 we can come back again.